Hey everyone, it's Peter Kerr from Daydream Nation, and I've got my mate from Canada back to the channel, Tim Durling from Tim's Vinyl Confessions. How are you, Tim?
I'm doing really good, Peter. Ready to do this again. Was it
It,
three of these now we've
yeah,
done?
yeah.
Rock
This
and Roll
is
Hall of
our
Fame?
our
Yeah.
our third annual deep dive into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, the faux pas, the misses, what we think should win, etc., etc. So, without further ado, I'll go through the list of the nominees and I'll take it from there. So, this year, very wide range of genre artists. You've got Mary J. Blige, Mariah Carey, Cher, Dave Matthews Band, Eric B. and Rackham, Foreigner, Peter Frampton, Jane's Addiction, Kool and the Gang, Lenny Kravitz, Oasis, Sinead O'Connor, Ozzy Osbourne, Sade, and A Tribe Called Quest. So, Tim, it seems like the list has just grown this year.
Not a
On
lot of
the
rock on this Rock and Roll Hall of Fame list.
Absolutely, but it's generating a lot of conversation. So, why don't we just get down to the brass tacks and talk about some of the inductees? One of them, which I know is very close to your heart, and we've done some shows in the past, is Foreigner. So Foreigner finally get inducted, are one of the inductees. I think Mick Jones said on record he had a falling out with Jan Weiner. I think that's how you pronounce his name, from Rolling Stone.
Whiner.
Yeah,
He's kind of a whiner, so we'll call him Jan Whiner.
Jan Weiner. Basically, the outcome was we're never going to be inducted. And there they are. They're one of the inductees. We've discussed this in the past that they kind of created a whole subgenre of American orientated rock or album orientated rock, or it could even be segued into yacht rock. Despite whether you love them or hate them, they are very influential, and it's been a head scratch that they've never, been sort of on that list until now. What are your initial thoughts in regards to that?
Well, I thought they should have gone in last year, and you know, it's just it's ridiculous, Peter, because they've been eligible since 2002. It's 25, if I got the math right, it's 25 years after the release of your first album. So yeah, 2002. And now it's 2024 and we're still debating whether they should get in or not. And what will get Foreigner in is, I mean, because they should have gone in on the strength of those hit songs, Mick and Lou's ability to write catchy rock songs. You're right. They began that corporate AOR rock genre, whatever you want to call it. Their debut album still had a little bit of progressive roots in them. But what will get them in, I think, is the fact that Mark Ronson is Mick Jones' son-in-law. And that's nobody's fault. That's just how it is. That's the way it is. It's and he's done a very good job at stirring up interest in Foreigner. I mean, most notably, I mean, everybody's seen the Paul McCartney clip. It's short but sweet and to the point. And also the fact that, it's a sickening thing, but sometimes the sympathy vote goes a long way. Mick Jones was recently diagnosed with Parkinson's. I think most Foreigner fans knew he wasn't well. He hasn't been on the road with them that much. And it's a completely non-original group performing, a very good group, I might add. But yeah, I think that if they get in this year, it'll be based on those two factors. You've got that awareness, the human factor of Mick Jones, being in ill health, sort of, and also the fact that you've got Mark Ronson, who's this, famous producer, songwriter, artist in his own right, and that might tweak some people in that direction. They obviously deserve to go in, but they should have been in. They should have. It's almost been as many years as they've been eligible to go in that they should have been in. Do you know what I mean? It's almost been, they've almost had to wait twice as long, whereas some groups, and even some groups we might discuss, get in almost as soon as they're eligible. So
Yes.
I think they should go in. I think the fact that Journey's already in there, and I don't think Journey would have had the success without Foreigner. I don't think a lot of bands would, from Def Leppard to Bon Jovi, and they're both in there. Foreigner made it okay to play rock on the radio that had a little bit more guitar in it, but it wasn't heavy, but it wasn't metal, but it had guitar riffs. I mean, they did all kinds of different songs, but they should be in there. At this point, what does it mean? They should be in there. So that's really all I got to say, but I think they should go in there. Will they? I think there's a pretty good chance they'll get in. That's my feeling.
I agree with you. I think out of all the list, there are some that I think are sure things, but I think if I was a betting man, it'd be pretty short odds that Foreigner will get in. The cynical part of me thinks the health aspect angle of Mick Jones having Parkinson's is definitely a storyline, and getting him and Lou Gramm on the same stage. They've had a falling out, and there is some unfinished business. And I think actually Lou was interviewed by Classic Rock magazine and said, look, there's still a lot of things that we need to sort out. And somebody said, well, why don't you have a cup of coffee or dinner ahead of the meeting? And we'll say, we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. So there's a lot of business-related animosity that needs to be sorted out. But I think for the sake of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame and it being a very auspicious event, that they will put that aside. It comes down to the crunch as to who gets in, because the number of members of Foreigner are quite big.
Yeah. Well, I have some opinions on that. I think that the original 6-man Foreigner should get in, and Rick Wills, who joined on Head Games. So I don't think anybody, because those are the lineups that had the hits. As great as Kelly Hansen does live, I don't think he should get in. I don't think Jeff Pilson should get in. My personal feeling is it should be the original 6, and sadly, 2 of those guys are gone. Ian McDonald and Ed Gagliardi. In the case of Mick Jones, at least it's not like Deep Purple, where John Lord wasn't around to accept the induction. That's my feeling. I think there should be 7 guys inducted. Will they all be? Hard to say. They make some. There are no rules. They say there's rules, but there are no rules, because you look at the Grateful Dead and you look at the E Street Band, and everybody and their dog got named there, and yet Kiss get in and Eric Carr. What I mean? Like it's arbitrary. Got in, Theo wasn't on there, so
arbitrary. Yeah. It's because some lineups are not deemed to be cool. Foreigner were not deemed to be cool. They weren't the critics' favorite. One thing's for sure: if they get in, they'll be asked to play I Want to Know What Love Is, guaranteed. So I know, Tim, you love those early rockers, but I reckon they'll go to that song.
I think you're right, but I also think that, how they have that jam at the end of the show? I could see them having like the all-star jam to something like Hot Blooded.
Yeah.
I could see that happening,
Yeah,
and Lou has gone on stage with Foreigner in recent years, as has Rick Wills, as has Dennis Elliott. So, there's a semblance there that they can compartmentalize long enough. It's like, we'll fight about songwriting royalties and stuff later. Let's go accept this award.
Yeah.
Who would induct them, I wonder? That's what I was been thinking of. Who would induct Foreigner?
Well, there's a couple of folk that have come out. Paul McCartney's done the 2-minute clip. I've seen Dave Grohl. There's a couple of other folk.
They need to give Dave Grohl a break. They got to get some. I've nothing against Dave Grohl. They got to let somebody else do it.
Yeah.
He knows everybody.
Yeah. I agree with you, but look, I think a lot of these picks, and I'm being cynical, Tim, they have the show as the idea. And I'm sorry, folks.
There, I think.
Yeah. So they look at this. It actually goes beyond, this is a worthy recipient. They think of the show. Yeah. So I think they'll pick Foreigner because you're going to have the gravitas of the choir swelling behind the boys. I Want to Know What Love Is. Guaranteed. So that's why I think it's, if I was a betting man on the tote board, short place favourite almost, that Foreigner will be up there. All right. Ozzy Osbourne. So I've put my hand up and I said, look, you've got a lot of bands where the band has gone up and the solo artist has been inducted. Ozzy arguably had a more successful career than Sabbath did as a solo artist.
He did. Absolutely he did.
So in the metal category, he doesn't really cancel out Foreigner. So Foreigner's in the adult, contemporary, or the orientated rock, the metal category. And you'd probably classify maybe Jane's Addiction with Ozzy, sort of almost in that sort of ballpark. So with Ozzy Osbourne, I think if he gets inducted, it won't happen, but gee whiz, he should be thanking Bob Daisley and Lee Kerslake. And if he doesn't...
Yeah, he should thank Jakey Lee. And he should thank, Ozzy is an extremely lucky guy. He was never a musician, per se. He was never a singer. He was surrounded by great musicians. He was surrounded by great writers, whether it was Geezer Butler writing the lyrics for Sabbath and Iommi coming up with the riffs. Then he ended up Bob Daisley writing. Like, people have no idea that Bob Daisley figures in so heavily on those, the first two albums anyway, maybe the third one.
And beyond, because I interviewed Bob.
Beyond. And you take out Bob Daisley songwriting, and there's nothing there, really. I mean, there's great guitar playing, right? I mean, but he wrote the songs. He brought the ideas for the songs. I'm not saying Ozzy didn't contribute anything, but he would need people that could play and say, I've got this idea, see what you can do with this. I mean, you're talking about an artist who very unceremoniously had musicians erased from, trying to rewrite history, right? With, we all know those first two reissues that people avoid. He should go in. I mean, there's, absolutely Ozzy should go in as a solo artist because, like you said, he's bigger as a solo artist. He's more successful as a solo artist. He's had more hit singles as a solo artist than Black Sabbath ever did. Did he have the influence on heavy metal that Black Sabbath did? I don't know about that. I know that, he was immensely popular, but I don't know I know Randy Rhoads inspired a lot of guitar players, and as did Jakey Lee and Zakk Wylde. But did Ozzy himself, as opposed to the work done with Sabbath that just set a million metal ships out to sea?
Absolutely.
But he should go in.
I'll put a quick question to you. What do you think gets played more in your circle of listening to music, watching TV in Canada? Crazy Train or Paranoid?
Oh, Crazy Train. Crazy Train is one of those pop culture songs.
Yes.
You know what I mean? As soon as everybody hears the All Aboard, it's the kind of song you hear them at sporting events. And whereas Paranoid's a very popular song, I'd even go as far as to say maybe Iron Man occupies that spot too. But no, I would say definitely Paranoid or Crazy Train, definitely. Yeah. But it doesn't stop there. I mean, it's Bark at the Moon, it's Shot in the Dark, it's Mom, I'm Coming Home, No More Tears. He had a lot of Flying High Again. He had a lot of rock radio staples that got more airplay than Black Sabbath did.
Absolutely.
I think that Black Sabbath, I'd be interested to know, Peter, how many records back catalog records that Sabbath sold after Ozzy became big as a solo artist.
Exactly. No, you're spot on. So getting back to the thing, because I think he may get in if he goes up on stage, and he's not in the greatest of health. So the cynical part of me thinks that there's a bit of an angle of, there's a storyline. Ozzy's a little bit frail. If he says thank you to Bob Daisley, then all those legal shenanigans, it's basically he's sort of saying, what was that all for? He will not thank Bob Daisley. He will not thank Lee Kerslake, because that's an admission that those guys were right. So there's going to be all the people that actually supported him and helped create Ozzy Osbourne, because you've got one individual that's been wrapped around with these magnificent, fantastic, creative musicians. It just won't happen. But I can see a storyline, and that's why I think, therefore, in respect of the whole heavy metal thing, the pop culture reference, Ozzy is definitely a standout when I'm looking at the
You
list.
mentioned too the pop culture reference. I never watched a single episode of his show, but a lot of people don't know. They know him from that show. They might never have heard his, or they heard his music after the fact.
Yes.
So he's part of pop culture, and I can even see somebody like Jack Black inducting him.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to park at another topic, and I'll talk to you maybe later in the show. And the topic subject line is Rock and Roll Hall of Fame does not like metal. And we'll talk about some,
Okay.
I'll just bandy off some list of bands. Peter Frampton, Phantom Comes Alive, 1975. One of the biggest selling live albums of all time. Now, maybe it's a lightning in a bottle because his follow-ups didn't do anywhere near the business, but he's got history. He was in Humble Pie. He's also had some health issues. What do you think about him as a strong candidate to get up there? And it's like the first time he's been on the list.
Yeah, that's interesting too. Now, personally, like we're talking about chances of people being on the list. I do not understand the popularity of that Frampton Comes Alive. I don't understand it. There's nothing wrong with it, but it's just, to me, it's just very plain, easy listening rock music for the most part. I don't understand. Like there was something that just happened to be the right album at the right time. It's amazing how many copies that album sold. I don't get it. I mean, he's one of those artists. I've seen him in concert. He's a fine guitar player. He's not a bad singer. I just don't like his music. And none of his songs, I'm sorry to Peter Frampton fans out there, but my opinion, none of his songs stick to me. I changed the station. Show Me the Way comes on. No, would somebody else please show him the way?
Is he like a Hootie and the Blowfish? Because that's another artist that had enormous success with their debut album, and then it disappeared. It's just a lightning in a bottle moment.
And I mean, really, Humble Pie is a well-regarded band, but were they that successful? I don't think they were really that big. They might have had one gold record, and I don't think that was with him and the band. So I think that's kind of irrelevant. And yeah, he did have some success afterwards, but that was the fumes of Frampton Comes Alive. Now, do I think he should get in? Yes, because he's a rock artist that basically broke through to the pop charts. And even if it was just that one album, who cares? You know, that one album had several songs that are still rock radio staples today. So yes, I think he should go in. He has had some health issues. I don't think there's any real drama with Frampton. I mean, I know John Regan was his bass player at one point. He was also with Ace Frehley. He's passed away. But yeah, I think he should go in. I mean, just it's like saying, you know, like I think another band that should go in is Boston. And people might say, well, yeah, but it's really, really all about that first album. Who doesn't matter? That was a moment, and it was a big moment. And so, yes, I don't have any strong feelings either way, but I don't know if he'll get in this year, but he should be in there. And the thing is, there are so many people that he should be in there ahead of.
Yes.
People that had their peak in the 70s and a really big one should be in there already.
And that's what frustrates the hell out of you and I, is that it doesn't follow the order. It's sort of like hip and happening bands get in straight away.
Yep.
But bands that may have been oversighted, we better go back 20 years. We
Guns
better
N'
go
Roses,
back 30 years.
Guns N' Roses and Nirvana. I think the first year they were both eligible, they're in.
Yep, straight away.
Where's the dues paying?
Yeah.
You know, and a lot of these groups that got in, there are groups that aren't in yet that they wouldn't have been musicians if it weren't for these groups that came before them. So
the folk that got influenced are in before the influencers. So look, I think Frampton gets consideration because he helped redefine the art of the live album as a viable commercial force. Live album was really a fine art in the 70s. You don't see it much these days because of videos and DVDs and Blu-rays.
It truly was. I mean, if you think of Kiss Alive, Alive 2, Cheap Trick, and Budokan, Yeah, there were a lot of bands that made it with their live albums and I think that has a lot to do with production, don't you?
Yep. Yep.
The songs sounded better when they were recorded that way than their studio versions.
Yep, absolutely. Now, a bit out of our wheelhouse, but we'll have a bit of a chat about it anyway. The first three on the list I see, Mary J. Blige, Mariah Carey, and Cher. So you've got three divas. I think out of
See,
those three, Mary J. Blige will definitely get in because she's very influential in hip hop, rap. She's just kind of regarded as a legacy artist, but I think in that genre, she is very influential. So even though we have our own quibbles about the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and to be quite frank, Tim, I was looking through previous inductees. This has been going on for some time. Like Miles Davis was inducted, and he's a jazz
yeah,
musician. So they've
I
really
get that
blurred
though,
the
because Miles
lines.
Davis. I get that because Miles Davis worked with John McLaughlin, and I get it. I respect that. I get that. But the thing with, did Whitney Houston get in?
Yes.
Okay, because I was going to say Mariah Carey should get in if Whitney hasn't.
Yeah, yeah.
You know
So
what I
they're
mean?
going down the
There's,
they're going down
yeah,
the diva path now.
yeah. I mean, Cher has dabbled in rock, but you
Yeah.
know, she should probably have gone in a long time ago if they were going to. I mean, I guess they might as well. And it's funny because Mary J. Blige still, and I know it's been 30 odd years, she still seems like too new an artist to go in right now. Seems to me that there are other artists that
Yeah.
should be going in. Like, are the Pointer Sisters in?
No.
They should be in before Mary J. Blige. Just at the first example that came to my mind, right?
So
Um,
Pointer Sisters are not in, but the Spinners get in.
so
So
that's strange
that
too,
just,
you know?
I mean, last year. I mean, okay.
Yeah,
So I think Mary J
strange.
will get. I think Mary J out of those three will get in. The next thing I want to bring as a topic point is called bands that are big in a particular country, but outside their
Right.
home country are not so big. So you've got Dave Matthews Band. Now, Dave Matthews in Australia and UK couldn't get arrested. I have not heard a Dave Matthews song in my life, but there he is. He's on the
He'll get
nomination.
in. I have a feeling he'll get in based on the, I don't want to say the hipster vibe, but you know, he's one of those bands that have people follow them around and not quite like the Grateful Dead, but kind of in that. And he had a lot of hits too. In North America. Not to my taste. I guess you could call it rock. It's very inventive sort of guitar playing, but again, there are just so many artists that should be ahead of Dave Matthews. If you were to ask him who his influences were, I bet you there's a lot of them that aren't in. Now, I have no idea who he was influenced by, but
Yeah.
I
Is
have
he
a
big in
feeling he'll probably
Canada?
go in.
Big
What's
in
that?
Canada? Dave
I would say
Matthews.
so. Yeah. Yes.
So if he played your biggest city near you, would he sell out a stadium or, get some
Well,
folk?
he would have. There's a time that definitely he would have. Now, I'm not so sure. He'd probably do like a mid-size on his own, or maybe with two or three other acts in a bigger
Yep.
place.
Okay. All right. Oasis. Now, this is another one. Huge in the UK. Absolutely huge. They were one of
Yeah,
the vanguards of Britpop.
yeah.
Europe, Australia, America, if you went to the person in the street, they would probably say Wonderwall and probably say, oh, they did a song about champagne. And
Yeah,
then
yeah,
they would struggle.
yeah. Yeah. Our good friend Matt Phillips is a huge Oasis fan, and I mean huge. And I would say that yeah, a lot of it has to do with American success, doesn't it? Because Oasis were really only big in the US for 1 or 2 years. Now, most people still know who Noel and Liam Gallagher are because they're notorious, right? The feuding.
Yep.
But have they followed the albums? Now, up here in Canada, even in, I'm pretty sure even in 2005, I think one of the last albums now I'm not up on my Oasis like I should be, but I'm pretty sure it was one of the last albums before they split. Matt went to see them at the Molson Amphitheater in Toronto, which is a huge venue. So, but then again, I don't know if it's because we were part of the UK Commonwealth, but bands that
Yeah.
were big in the UK sometimes did really, really well in Canada before they broke in the States, or sometimes they didn't break in the States, but could still
Yeah.
sell really, really well here. The
Yeah.
thing about Oasis is that they are a rock band. They're a rock and
Mm.
roll band. And if they get in, I think it'll be on the notoriety.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
the fact that they've got 2 songs that most people know, that's hard to do nowadays, to have songs that are really old that people still know today. I mean, Wonderwall has become almost like a 90s version of Freebird, because it's almost a joke, right? Because you'll
Mm.
see somebody with a guitar and the caps will say, anyway, here's Wonderwall. So
Yeah. It's a karaoke classic, isn't it? Well, in our parts, I
exactly.
don't know if they have karaoke up in Canada, but it's get out the
I
beers
have not
and
been in front of a karaoke mic in a long time, and that's good for everyone. But yeah, I think if Oasis go in, it'll be on that personality thing, the whole thing, like who's going to show up.
yeah.
And newsflash, the brothers are not going to show up together. It just won't
Yeah.
happen.
Well, there you go. There's the other storyline. It
If
means
one
like
commits to
it's
showing up, the other one will not, and
yeah.
it'll be just back and forth in the press.
Yeah.
And the press will
It's
love it, but I don't think they're going to get the. There will be no Gallagher brothers reunion.
so the
They have a
cynical
better chance of seeing the Raven Gallagher brothers on stage at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame than the Oasis.
I could dig that, but I don't think the audience would like it. They'd probably go, "Who are
They'd be
these
very
anyway?"
confused. Yeah.
Yeah, but I think it's stunt induction. It really is. I think a lot of these nominees are having the storyline in their heads about what the show could be. We could reunite the Gallaghers, therefore we'll put it on. And every year there seems to be a British band that they test the waters to see if it gets any sort of popular vote or attraction. Like the year prior, they had the Smiths. Can we get Morrissey and Johnny Marr together up on
Right.
stage? That was only one year and it dropped off. Joy Division, New Order,
Yeah.
they put that up and they drop it. I just
Kate
think it's
Bush
a real...
last year, and she's not even on the ballot this year.
Yeah. Oh, Kate Bush. Kate Bush got inducted.
Oh, she did.
Yes, she made it.
Oh, oops. That's
Don't
good.
worry.
I think that's good.
I'll
And I
edit
think
that out.
that Sinead O'Connor. I think Sinead O'Connor occupies that spot this time.
Well, 10 years ago, she was box office poison, or 20 years ago, wouldn't have been considered.
But now, I
But
hate
her
to say
death.
it, but now
Her
she's
death.
dead.
Yes.
She's dead. So
absolutely.
I don't think she'll get in. I don't think she'll
Yeah.
get in.
Now, what about Lenny Kravitz? He's the everyman of rock, and
Right.
I like Lenny. I quite like, and his fire burned quite brightly in the late 80s, early 90s. But you don't really hear much of Lenny. I think he's probably middling in the pack. How do you think?
Yeah.
Do you think he's a strong candidate?
I like some of his stuff. I mean, he was a breath of fresh air when I know it was his 3rd album, but when Are You Gonna Go My Way came out in the midst of grunge, I'm like, this is an upbeat rock and roll song with a guitar solo and enthusiasm and not staring at your shoes. So now, not all of his songs were like that. He's all over the place influence, because he's got so many influences, everything from R&B to reggae to metal to pop to disco. Like, he's done just about every type of music. I think that there is a certain amount of cynicism with Lenny, because when he started out, he was this flower child, let love rule, and it was different. It was definitely different. It was a very stripped down, dry production that didn't really last. He got sort of more of a techno thing, and he did get a lot of burnout on popular radio. I need never hear his version of American Woman ever again. But should he be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame? Yes, I think he should be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. But I think that he would be the first to say that there are plenty of people that should be in before him that influenced him.
Like perhaps Kool and the Gang, who are on the nomination sheet.
Very, very likely. Now, that's an interesting one. because there's no drama with Kool and the Gang. I don't know that I could name you one member of Kool and the Gang. Actually, no, I could, because the Kool in Kool and the Gang is Robert Kool Bell. But this, if I got this right, the singer on most of their popular songs was actually named James Taylor. Now, he always went by JT. Other than that, I couldn't name you anybody in the band. I know that there's been members of that band that have passed away. But in the 1980s, I know they were big in the 70s, like in R&B radio, but it's a little bit like Lionel Richie and the Commodores. You didn't really start to hear them until the 80s came around, or, in the case of the Commodores, when Lionel Richie went solo. But Kool and the Gang were all over the radio in the 80s. And I could probably list about a dozen songs right off the top of my head without even having to think too much about it. So
Pulp Fiction,
yeah,
Quentin Tarantino, he brought them back into the pop culture consciousness. Sade, so she was very big for a period of time, and she was merging like jazz with soul with pop. I think she's kind of be up there as a strong contender, considering that they seem to like the 80s artists, like Duran Duran have got in, George Michael's. What about Sade?
Sade was different when she came out. She wasn't Madonna. She wasn't, Janet Jackson. She, of course, there was that exotic element. She was from, it just went out of my head.
Egypt.
Yeah. And, she had a lot of big hit singles, and she sold a lot of albums.
Yeah.
Not rock in the least, but I guess we have to get past that. So absolutely, she deserves to get in. So, someone like Mary J. Blige, I think should step back. Even Mariah Carey, step back and let Sade in first. Sade was never a diva as far as a personality, but she had that amazing voice, right? And it was different for pop radio. It stood out when I think the first big song she had here was Smooth Operator.
Yes.
That didn't sound like anything else that was on the radio in 1985. It was very lushly produced. It was R&B. There were no electronic drums in it or big synthesizer hooks. It had saxophone. It was very cocktail jazz club music, but it was a huge hit. I think, that was a catchy song, but it was different. And, she really caught the attention of the record buying public there for a couple of years. I think worldwide, she's probably bigger. Like, she probably had more albums than people know about, but, deserving of getting in. Absolutely.
Yeah. I'm a closet fan of Sade. I actually, put it right next to my Slayer records, but I've always had a soft spot for Sade. I've seen her live. And I think
it would be Sade, Slade, and then Slayer, right? There's a triple bill for you.
Yes, I don't know how that would go, but some bill. But look, she definitely that album was played a lot. It's sold by the bucket load, and very influential with a lot of the trip hop apps like Massive Attack and the early 90s.
She didn't just have the one hit either. She had quite a few hits.
Absolutely. And they charted and sold a lot of records in the US. She was one of those transatlantic artists that sold a lot.
I mean, even, who was it? Was it the Deftones? I think it was Deftones did a version of No Ordinary Love. So obviously her reach extended. I remember reading an interview with John Bush from Anthrax Armored Saint saying that she was one of his favorite singers. So there you go.
Absolutely. Well, we're not alone. Very briefly, A Tribe Called Quest. I don't know enough about them, but I know that there are a bit of
one song. I've heard of them for years. I couldn't name you one song. They weren't a group that crossed over to pop success, but I know that in the hip hop they're hugely influential. And I don't even know if anyone came from that group to become famous on their own. It's not my wheelhouse, but I do know that they're hugely influential, and I would imagine they will get in.
Well, they might get that consolation prize, the influential prize. So, because I think they've been on the ballot.
Was that the one that Priest got?
Yeah. I have this theory that if you're on the ballot a number of years in a row and you don't get through, like Nile Rodgers, you get awarded the consolation prize. So I've seen them.
Then they can get you off the list.
Yeah. You're blocking it. Jane's Addiction.
Their first album was kind of big. The second one was a little bit bigger because they had that song, Been Caught Stealing. That video got a lot of play. And then they broke up for a number of years, and Perry Farrell did Porno for Pyros, and Dave Navarro joined the Chili Peppers, but then they've reunited off and on through the years. But I think it's only the first two albums that certified. I'm really not sure, but they came out in 1988, 1987, and they predated grunge. They weren't grunge of themselves, but they definitely sort of predated the alternative rock thing that happened in the 90s. And I think every band that came out cited them and the Chili Peppers as an influence. And of course, Perry Farrell, began Lollapalooza. They'll get in because of the cool factor.
And then Eric B. and Rackham. So there we have the list.
The only thing I know them for, and I think I'm right about this, there was a song by Jody Watley called Friends that had a rap section in the middle. And I think it was Eric B. and Rakim. Other than that, I don't think so. I think that there are other hip hop artists that were probably bigger that should probably go in, like, I don't know, Kool Mo D, or I don't know.
Yeah. Yep.
Is LL Cool J in yet?
Yes, he's
Is Run
here.
DMC in?
Yes, they're definitely in. So, all right, Tim, thank you for that. So what we'll do is I'll put on our screens Tim's top 5 or Tim's 5 tips. So offline, you can just tell me who they are and I'll put it up on the screen. The 5 picks that you think will come in, and I'll put my 5 picks of who I think will be inducted in the Hall of Fame, and we shall see when the announcement comes out if we are correct. So, Tim, I want to finalise this little chat with a subtopic called Rock and Roll Hall of Fame just does not like metal. Put it in the genre of hard rock and metal. So I'm talking about Thin Lizzy. I'm talking about Iron Maiden. I'm talking about Motorhead. I'm talking about Motley Crue. Like 'em or hate 'em, there seems to be a bit of an aversion on hard rock and heavy metal. Do you agree?
Yeah. Yes, I do. I think what they did to Judas Priest was shameful. Didn't they put them in sort of the sidemen category?
Yep. Yes.
That doesn't even make any sense, Peter. Don't you just get the sense that they said, well, we've got to put them somewhere?
Yes.
They might as well have put them in the R&B category. It makes no sense. If you were going to put Toto in the sidemen category, that makes sense. They were all session guys.
Yep.
Judas Priest were a unit, a band. They didn't play on everybody's albums. That's that old school, that's that same mentality that led the Grammys to choosing Jethro Tull over Metallica in 1989. They just have no idea.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's definitely an aversion. Thin Lizzy, there's an example of a band that was only famous in North America really for Jailbreak and The Boys Are Back in Town. But influential, if there's an influential category, they should be in there. They
big in Europe. Big in UK, big in Europe.
For crying out loud, Metallica, hugely influential band in all walks of music. So they should be in there. Iron Maiden, the number of albums they've sold and how well they've done all over the world as just an entity, a touring act. They should definitely be in.
They're a cross-generational band because I've been to Iron Maiden concerts and you've got fathers bringing their sons. It's like 3 generations of fans. They're not like a metal band that's caught in a time capsule. They're like a band that has gone from generation to generation to generation, and they can play from India to Brazil and then go to China. They're universal.
And they, the iconography of Eddie was so smart. And that's just took on a life of its own too. So there's that. The imagery has helped keep them, that just the sight of Eddie and that logo. You see it everywhere still on all, like you said, all ages. I see young kids wearing Maiden shirts, right? Buying Maiden pop figurines. They really should be in. It just, that's one of the more glaring omissions. Motley Crue should be in. Motley Crue should have gone in before Guns N' Roses. There would be no Guns N' Roses if it weren't for Motley Crue. Never mind,
Yeah.
what I mean. And there's maybe they think it's just the drama is too raw at this point, right? With Mick Mars and the band.
Yeah.
But I mean, they sold a lot of albums. They had a lot of hit singles. They should be in. And they're almost known, as personalities too.
Yeah.
So,
I mean,
yeah,
if Bon Jovi's in, Motley Crue should be in because Bon Jovi, the early part of the career was hair metal. Therefore, Motley Crue are on a par record sales wise. I don't know who sold more records. You'd know this, Bon Jovi or Motley Crue. They'd be kind of pretty on a
Bon
par.
Jovi.
Worldwide.
Bon Jovi by a huge margin.
Seriously? Okay, all right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now,
But Motley Crue are not too shabby. They're pretty,
No. Motley Crue, Dr. Feelgood sold 5 million in the States. That's their biggest selling single album. They never had a diamond album,
Yeah.
Motley Crue sold, say, more than Rat, which is a band I prefer to Motley Crue, but Rat's never going to get in. But Motley Crue probably will. They probably will eventually. But again, Motley Crue have been eligible since 2006. So
yeah. And they're part of pop culture. Everybody knows them. Everyone knows
Absolutely.
the individual members. Everybody has their opinion of a semblance of who they are, for better or for worse. They're very tabloid.
People who have no idea about the band, that they play music in certain circles, they know who Don Lee is. The Netflix movie that year, there wasn't a little flare-up of interest, but there didn't seem to be.
I'm sure that they probably have inspired numerous bands to, or folk to pick up the guitar and give it a go.
I think even a band like Green Day would cop to that. Believe it or not.
It goes into the category of who's cool, who's not,
Exactly.
who's going to be ready for the show. Like, I'm thinking, I've seen a lot of commentary on YouTube, just people's comments that they say, if Maiden got in, maybe they would be too overwhelming for the show because it'd be a showstopper. Could you imagine? Because you've got all these different genres in the audience. You've got the rap crowd, you've got the pop crowd, and then they come out. It'd be sort of like oil and water. It's sort of like,
But Metallica got in. Sabbath got in. It's not like AC/DC got in. It's not like people aren't used to heavy, loud guitars.
Yeah, but in the old days, I think it was less geared to the show
for sure.
and to pay TV and selling tickets to it is now. I think this whole thing is a sham. It's kind of like almost commerce. What's going to sell tickets? I think if you had a pie graph, 50% is about musical influence and who's worthy, and the rest of it is about what's the storyline and can we sell tickets.
Right. Yeah. And you mentioned Motorhead. Well, now there's an example. I don't think Motorhead had a single gold record in the States. They never sold albums, but everybody knows who Motorhead is. Everybody knows who Lemmy is. And the influence runs so much deeper than the record sales attest to. Again, in the UK, they had big albums. They had big hit singles. And Metallica, that would be one where you'd have to have, if Motorhead got in, you'd have to have Metallica, somebody from Metallica induct them, I think. But the sad thing is that best known Motorhead lineup, they're all gone. So but you could almost throw them in there as influential. You could throw them in there as influential, and I think you should throw them in there.
Absolutely.
How many times do you see the Motorhead logo on show, almost like the Ramones? You see the snaggletooth thing everywhere.
Yeah, T-shirt band. They did make the ballot paper once, like Thin Lizzy, and it was sort of like putting the feet in the water, and then you didn't see them again. But Scorpions.
Scorpions should be in. They sold a lot of albums. What they did as far as breaking down, for a band like that to hit so big in the 80s when the Cold War was underway, pretty big deal. There's no drama with Scorpions, there's no real drama there. I don't think anybody really cares if Herman Rarebell's the drummer. I know the diehard fans would, but you know what I mean? Like, there's no real drama there, but I think they would get one of those side categories, if anything.
Yeah, look, they're one of the rare European bands that broke it big in America. And you're thinking of the
Yeah, so
language
millions
barrier.
and millions of
Yeah,
albums. They've got
Love
I
at
don't know how
First
many
Sting.
platinum albums. Yeah,
Love at First Sting was a huge hit.
yeah.
So, yeah, look, I think that there's so many glaring omissions, but I was doing a deep look into the rest of it, and I seriously don't think artists like Dio, Rainbow, Whitesnake, let's be frank, kind of second tier, and we love them. You and I love them
Yeah.
dearly. Would ever crack it for a position on the induction?
Whitesnake would never go in. I think David Coverdale knows that he got in inducted as a member of Purple. That's going to be his,
Yes.
because Whitesnake were only really big for one album, and yes, they've got that one big album that got into a lot of homes. Everybody knows Here I Go Again. Is that Rock and Roll Hall of Fame? I don't know. It's such a fractured story, right? Because there's been so many Whitesnake lineups, right? Now, and if enough people knew that it had something to do with the Hall of Fame, hey, could we get David Coverdale and John Sykes on stage? But number one, nobody knows who John Sykes is.
Absolutely. But I could counterpoint that and say Frampton Comes Alive was like similar to 1987. It was lightning in a bottle.
But it was more mainstream. You know what I mean? It wasn't quote unquote metal.
But Here I Go Again is played on commercials. It's in movies.
It is. It is. I agree with you.
Yeah.
It's not metal at all. It's pop culture. But
yeah,
the name, maybe it's the name. I don't know. I just, as much as I think they're worthy of going in, and Coverdale's written so many great songs, he's another guy. I mean, great singer and musician in his own right. He's also been surrounded by great musicians his entire career. So, yeah. So that's why, I can't see it. Rainbow, again, hugely influential, but never had a gold record in North America, which is crazy when you think about it.
Absolutely.
Dio had 2 or 3 albums that did well, and people kind of know who he is as a figure, but I think that if he was going to go in, they should have inducted him with Sabbath.
Yeah. Status Quo, UK, sold bucket loads of albums.
Exactly.
They do that meat and potatoes boogie. But outside of Britain and Europe, not well known at all.
Nothing.
So
unless people remember them from Live Aid, I know who they are. I know very little about them. I mean, I could see somebody like, as far as that sort of boogie rock, I could see a band like Foghat going in before Status Quo because they were big in the States.
Right. Okay.
Or Sweet or
Blue Oyster Cult.
Blue Oyster Cult, that's an interesting one. That's a really interesting one.
I think second tier, because they were like a well-known cult band, but they didn't really break through to superstar status. What's their biggest hit? Don't Fear the Reaper.
Don't Fear the Reaper is evergreen. Everybody knows that song. The Saturday Night Live, the more cowbell sketch, that brought that back. That's still a big song. A lot of people know Burnin' For You. Nobody knows nobody knows the members of the band, but influential, very influential.
Well, I think we've come to the conclusion that the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame does not like metal, and considering that the chairman of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame's name is John Sykes.
Yeah, isn't that that's kind of weird? I think that John Sykes once had something to do with MTV, if I've got the right guy.
Yeah, they should replace him with the other John Sykes, but I tell you one thing,
David
Coverdale would never be in.
Yeah, but he wouldn't show up, and nobody could find him. And
All right, well, there you go. So another year has gone past, and we're still mining the topic. I think last time we spoke, Tim, we said, "Oh, look, I think we've mined it, but there's more. There's always branches.
There's always deserving artists that are going to get passed over, or they'll get a cursory nod, or they'll get, on the ballot one year. And ultimately, I mean, if people are fans of these bands, I think there is a certain amount of, when they, a band does get in, you just kind of go, okay, good. Some things do make sense in this world, so it'll be interesting to see, who comes around next year. It's more open to anything now than it used to be, because even 20 years ago, you wouldn't have seen Foreigner on the ballot, or you wouldn't have had Bon Jovi, Def Leppard, Journey. None of those. They would anything that dared to be commercial and popular and crowd pleasing wasn't even not too populist, right? They've gotten past that, but they've almost gone too far the other way. Now they're just letting everybody who ever played any genre of music and put an album out in there. So I don't know. It's hey,
Yeah.
it makes for great conversation.
It makes for great conversation, but at the end of the day, a lot of it just does not make any sense at all, other than commerce, because I think commerce really drives it. It's about pay for view, and you know.
At a certain point, the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame is just the name of it. There's nothing literal about it.
Yeah,
It's a music fame. It's popular music Hall of Fame.
absolutely. Well, thank you very much, Tim. Please check out Tim's channel on Tim's Vinyl Confessions, and also please check out the wonderful book that Tim did on Y&T, another band that won't get in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, but they're in our Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, Tim.
Absolutely,
and the book's doing well, I believe.
Still selling. It's still selling. It's got legs on it. And thank you to everybody that supported. It helps support the channel too. And my previous book, Unspooled, has come a little bit behind it and sells. Every once in a while, I'll sell one of those too, which is great.
Yeah, absolutely. And check out the show that I did with Tim a couple of weeks back about the Y&T. That was really a gas, just going over the book and the whole discography of Y&T. But look, tell us what you think about the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, or is it the Hall of Shame? Those artists that you think deserve to get in, those artists that don't deserve to get in, and what your picks are. We love reading your comments, but one thing's for sure, you'll see me and Tim on plenty of shows on this channel in 2024. See you soon. Cheers.